Hey guys, how are you guys? How's everybody? Thank you guys for joining me here again tonight. It looks like we have a excellent connection. Again, there may be a bit of lag on what I'm seeing and what you guys are seeing. So, can everyone see me clearly? How's the quality? How does the sound? How's the sound coming out here? Hey Johnny. Hey Paul. How are you guys? Thank you guys for joining me, and I hope you're having a wonderful Saturday. I'm very sorry about not originally streaming and going live yesterday. I had an issue with my internet and couldn't really do anything about it. And like I said, I'm still pretty new at this, so I'm learning all the ins and outs. I just had an issue with the with the microphone, and I didn't know why it wasn't working, but now I think it should be working fine. So, yeah, how are you guys doing? How was your weekend? What's up, Fox? How are you? Constellation Fleet. Hey, Gaucho. How are you, man? All the way from the UK. That's awesome. Great to see you here. So let's give it another 2-3 minutes, see if some more people join. What I want to ask you guys to do, if you can, is copy the link of this live and share it on social media. Share it anywhere you can, on Reddit, on Twitter, anywhere you want. And let's see if we can get more people to join us here tonight and to have this conversation with us, because I feel like it's an important conversation, and I think it's going to be a good one. That's great, Fox. I'm glad you're having a good weekend, man. I honestly, after having that issue yesterday and then trying to get this all set up today, my weekend's been okay other than what happened yesterday. I'm working on new content, so for those of you that are subscribed to the channel and you know the kind of content I make, I don't want this always, to be lives. Last week I didn't have any new content out other than the live that we did, and it was just an idea that fell through. So I'm working on something new, and I think I will have something up very soon. Johnny Hernandez, consejo, haz los lives los días de semana. Okay. Johnny Hernandez just said, he gave me some advice. He said, do the lives on a weekday. I may be able to do that. I said in the past, maybe we can do them on a Wednesday. Wednesdays and Fridays are pretty good for me because I have the house to myself at night, so I can use the whole house and stream and talk to you guys. But yeah, I like how this is working out. I like the dynamic. I like that we're being able to talk. I think it's great, and it's going to keep growing. It's going to keep getting better. So let's see. Let's start talking about what we wanted to talk about tonight. So I invited abductees and experiencers to come here tonight to join us and share their story in the live chat. I feel like the abduction phenomenon is not taken or not appreciated or respected and analyzed the way it should be by the UFO community these days. I'm not sure if you guys agree with me, but let me know in the live chat if you think I'm on the right path here. Hey Victor Bot, how are you, man? Welcome. So the abduction phenomenon and just experiencers, all their stories, all their experiences matter so much. Without understanding what they're coming into contact with, without us analyzing the relationship this phenomenon has with us, I don't think we'll really grasp what's happening. So who better to learn from or to, hear out than the people that have come into contact with these craft or with these beings? It's very unfortunate to see how abductees get treated often in the community. People, it's not easy for them to come out and tell their story, right? So first off, we need to consider that somebody openly talking about their experience, I think it's very brave and it shows a lot of strength. Also, I think they are looking for answers. They're looking for somebody to talk to that's not going to disregard them or treat them like they're crazy. So you have obviously abductees and experiencers. Now, experiencers maybe have not have not had a close encounter of that magnitude as an abductee may have had. But at the end of the day, I look at them all kind of similarly, right? Because the experiences and the interactions we have with this phenomenon affects all of us differently. And you never know what you can learn from an experience or what you can learn from a experiencer or an abductee. So let me check out the live chat again. Pro Illusionist, hey man, thank you for being here again. Always. Fox 2, thank you again for joining us. This is awesome. So Fox Crow says, I've been looking into Steve Boucher, I think that's how you say it. He has an incredible abduction story. He just went public after decades of hiding his identity. Hey, Great Troll, what's up, man? So that's one thing you often see is like so many abductees not coming out and telling their story. And I totally get it. I totally understand why. You know, even talking about the phenomenon can be difficult. You know, even if you're just an enthusiast or a researcher, having an open conversation with somebody can be difficult. You are looked upon, you are shunned sometimes and looked upon as strange or weird, right? Less these days with how open the topic is being discussed in the media, but it's still there. That stigma still exists. And I always think that it must be so difficult for somebody that has an experience that they can't explain and comes into contact with these beings or these craft, because who do you tell? Who's going to help you? You know, who can actually let you know that you're not alone? Who can sit you down and tell you, look, man, you're not crazy? I think there's very few people out there that will actually sit down and listen to a abductee tell their story and not start to pick it apart or analyze it and try to find holes in their story. I've heard many stories. You know, people have reached out to me and told me their experiences. And the one thing I always try to do is not analyze it basically by, like, I try to take it as face-to-face value, right? Obviously, if the story sounds embellished or maybe, you know, there are people that make things up, but I will figure that out on my own, right? I don't want them to feel uncomfortable when they tell me their story. So that's something I think we all need to think about when coming in contact with abductees or experiencers. We got to let them talk and share their experience to really understand what they went through and what they felt or what they feel even to this day. So Johnny Hernandez just left something there in the live chat. He says, mi caso en 1993 vi un ser de luz y mis amigos, yo y mis amigos, algo increíble. So he said, translation would be, his case in 1993, he saw a light being with his friends. So they had a group sighting, and it was incredible. I'd love to hear more about that, Johnny. So, you know, keep sharing. Do you remember, was it daytime? Was it nighttime? Where were you guys? What part of, you know, where did this sighting happen? Victor Bot says, it's really difficult. There are a few support groups for these types of events. Yeah, I know. And that's one thing that I started realizing after looking into the subject for so long, is that we need to hold our abductees and experiencers up, right? We need to push them forward and let them know that they're not alone. We need to give them strength to understand that, you know, it's amazing what happened to you. You know, it may be dark, it may be scary for some, it may be life-changing, it may be positive for others. But, you know, you're one in a million. Not everyone has an experience. Not everyone has a close encounter. I was thinking of what I was going to talk about tonight with you guys today. And there's this story that I always remember. Maybe like 2 years ago, I went to a family event, right? And we basically like rented this nice house kind of outside of the city. And there was a few of us there. And it's very common here to have asado, you know, like barbecue, Argentinian barbecue, it's asado. And I suggest you guys try it if you haven't. It's very good if you're into meat. But they were having an asado, and we were all there just sitting. They started talking about soccer or something, and I'm not a big fan of soccer. So I got up and kind of walked away from the group, right? It was a big place where we were. There was like a lot of green, plants and stuff. So I just kind of walked away to look at the beautiful stuff around me. As I separated myself from the group, somebody came out of the group and walked up to me, right next to me. I think I might have been looking at the sky or something. And I had a NASA shirt on that day, right? I love my NASA shirts. I have one that I've been wearing for like 4 years religiously. So he's like, do you believe in UFOs? And I'm going to keep this person, obviously. I'm not going to share their name or really let you guys know exactly who this person is because this was something personal. But he just asked me if I believe in UFOs. And at the time, this, my family or this group of people didn't really know what I was into, right? They didn't know that I was doing this. Like I had this channel and I was researching UFOs. Like I normally keep that separate from most of my, I try to walk a thin line and talk to people I want to talk to about it, like you guys. And, just be careful with who I share my opinions on this subject with. So back to the story, he asked me if I believe in UFOs. And right away I tell him yes. I tell him, there's a lot of evidence out there that shows that we're not alone, that we're being interacted with, something's visiting us. And he says, back when he was younger, he tells me he used to go to Cordoba with his family. They would go like in the summertime. Now, Cordoba is a UFO hotspot. For those of you that don't know about Cordoba, I made a whole video about it. I went there and vlogged the whole thing. There's this mountain called the Uritorco, which people say inside of it, there's like a legend that inside of it there is a race of ETs living inside the mountain. I've been there multiple times. I think I want to go again. I will most likely go again. I have family there, so every time I go to Cordoba, I go to the Uritorco and Capilla del Monte is the town. But I'm just trying to say that Cordoba is known for UFO sightings. So he tells me that they went to this house to vacation for the summer. He's younger. He's in the backyard. And he's alone, playing with, I think, like a ball or something, I think he told me. And he notices something shimmering in the sky, something shiny, something reflecting light. So he looks up and he told me it was so strange to him that he saw a saucer, right? That he could clearly see that it was a flying saucer, just like it was portrayed in films, and just like, this whole legend of the flying saucer, it was just like that, he said. He said that he didn't feel scared, but it began to sort of come down, right? Get closer to him, sort of above his head, right? And he said he didn't feel afraid. He was just fascinated. He was kind of like awestruck. He was a little kid, so imagine. The craft gets above him, and then he starts to feel a little uncomfortable, but he wants to share what he's seeing, right? He wants to share this experience. So he starts yelling to his mother to come outside. By the time his mother comes outside, he tells me the craft, it floated up and just drifted away. So she comes outside, and it's crazy, but she didn't see anything, right? He was just a little kid saying that he saw something in the sky. But what was fascinating to me is he was telling me this story, not knowing that I do research into this subject. And the first thing that stood out was him telling me that he didn't feel uncomfortable, right? He didn't feel afraid. You would think a kid at that age would probably feel a little uneasy about the situation, maybe even frightened, maybe even scared. And then I thought it was interesting that when he started calling for his mother, the craft floated away, almost like it knew what was happening. Could tell, he was calling for somebody. And that story stuck with me too, because he said that what fascinated him was that it didn't look like an alien craft, right? It was the classic flying saucer, but he said that it looked man-made, right? It looked like something made of metal that humans could have made. So yeah, so he tells me that and he walks away. And that story's always stuck with me. And I thought, this guy is not the kind of person that would embellish anything. He's not. He's a really smart, clear-minded person. And that was strange that that interaction happened between us, because I would have never expected that to happen. But it just left me thinking, there's so many people out there that have probably had experiences like him, where he saw the craft close up. He could see it, he said, in detail. He could see details on the craft. And they just don't tell anybody about it. They just live their whole life trying to find an explanation for it. And I don't know if his explanation over time, his mind made him think like, this must have been man-made. This must have been some test craft or some, something that we made. So yeah, so that was a bit of the inspiration for me thinking about making this video too. So let me check out the live chat. Johnny is sharing more of his story. He said, fue en DR. En la noche éramos 6 amigos. Vimos una luz del tamaño de una bola de béisbol que flotaba, era blanca y se convirtió en un ser de luz que se aproximó a unos 5 pies de nosotros. He says, la historia más larga fue un resumen. So he's basically saying that they were in DR. I think that, Johnny, where is that exactly, DR? He said that it was nighttime, he was with 6 friends, and they saw this, a ball of light just sort of float down about the size of a baseball. It was white, and he said it turned into a light being, and it got like 5 feet away from them. He said the story is much longer, but he just gave us like a quick breakdown of it. That's really fascinating, Johnny. Thank you for sharing that. My dog is here. I think she wants to get on the couch. Give me 1 second. Come here. Come on. All right. So she's now on the couch. Dominican Republic. I've been to the Dominican Republic, Johnny. It's a beautiful place. It's, I went there for my honeymoon, and it's a magical location. Definitely. I really enjoyed it, and I could see like how of a vast sort of tropical location it is. I could totally see something like you're experiencing happening in the Dominican Republic. Yeah, like Victor said, Johnny, thank you for sharing. So does anyone else have any close encounter experiences or abductee experiences that they want to share? Maybe it's not your story, maybe it's a story you heard from somebody. Obviously don't share their name or anything personal, but tonight I think it's very important that we just respect these stories, respect people like Johnny telling his story and taking, being brave and letting us hear his story, and try to analyze that. So Johnny, my question is, when you saw this light being, did it have any features? Did it have hands or a face or anything like that, or was it just a light in the shape of a like a humanoid figure in the shape of light, or a light in the shape of a humanoid figure would be better said. Carl Anderson, hey man, how are you? Thank you for joining us. So again, guys, do me a huge favor, copy the link of this live and share it on Twitter. Shout me out, let everyone know this is happening, so we get more people in here and we continue this discussion. So personally, I have not seen a physical craft, right? Personally, I have not seen a saucer or a Tic Tac or anything that I could say for sure match the description of what we've been looking into. But again, in Cordoba, I went a few years back to visit with my wife, and we didn't have a car at that time, so we were kind of just going from one spot to another. Like I said, I have family there, so they were driving us around. And of course, I wanted to go to Capilla del Monte, which is this place where people often see UFOs. And one day, my uncle finally decides to take us and drive us there. We took a tent with us. So I was like, why don't we camp I think there's a campsite at the base of the mountain, of this magical mountain, right? We actually hiked the Uritorco. Now, Cordoba is, the terrain is like, there's not really any shade. So the hike was pretty intense, guys. I wouldn't suggest anyone do it, but I thought maybe on the hike I would see something interesting, something that reminded me of, I don't know, some relic or something, something that tied to the UFO phenomenon. It was a beautiful view. It was a beautiful place, and I could see like how these magical locations, I think that's a good way to say it, magical locations kind of attract this phenomenon. But we had to go down to the town, and it was nighttime, right? So we're camping at the base of this mountain where people see UFOs all the time, and orbs and light beings and all that kind of, all those aspects of the phenomenon. And there's a bus that comes and picks you up at the base. But from the base where we're standing, you can see like the mountain, right? The mountain that we had hiked earlier. And as I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, my wife is not as into this phenomenon as I am, so I was super happy to be there. But I was looking up at the sky at night, seeing the stars and stuff, and thinking, wouldn't it be amazing if I had a sighting, if I experienced something, where so many people have seen things? What if I experienced something here? And in my head, I was thinking, show yourself. Show me a sign that this phenomenon is real, right? In my head, I was thinking that as I waited for the bus. And as I'm staring at the sky and I'm thinking this in my head, I see this blue flash just appear, like, right? Kind of like a burst, right? There's no drones there. Nobody was flying any drones. It wasn't a shooting star, because it was sort of like I guess you would say like a bulb, like a flash from a camera, right? But up in the sky above the mountain, there was no people there. The only way you could get up there would be like with a drone or a helicopter or something. And I see the light. I'm like, okay, well, maybe it's just the light, right? Or maybe it was some natural phenomenon that I just saw. As I'm thinking that, like a few 100 feet away, another flash of this same blue light. And it was so quick, right? For it to be a craft or anything, it would have been impossible. It jumped from one part of the sky to the other and flashed again. And as that's happening, I'm trying to get the attention of my wife to look up at the sky and to see what I'm seeing. And there's one more flash, again, in a different part of the sky. And then it just disappears. It's gone. So yeah, that was an experience that I had where I guess I saw an anomalous light, right? Something that I couldn't explain. We get in the bus and we go down to the town. So let's check out the live chat. Let's see who else is here. Constellation Fleet says, I see the craft regularly during the day and night. I wouldn't say I'm scared of them, but I'm very cautious of them. Well, I think that a logical approach to this would be to be cautious. There's a lot of people that are open to, they believe that these beings are here to help us. But I think, like, if we're going to be realistic, we need to understand that if there's more than one being visiting us and one race of beings, each of these beings may have their own agenda, their own opinion, their own thoughts on our species and how they should treat us. So it's always good to be cautious. I agree. Personally, I would be very cautious, not even getting too close to a craft. After all the research I've done, if I saw a craft land in front of me, the first thing I would have done years ago would have run up to it, try to touch it, see it, get close to it. Now I think I would have some distance from it, maybe take out my camera, use my zoom lens, and try to get close to it. But, my camera probably wouldn't even work, so I don't know. So Johnny says, so he's responding to my question when I asked him what the light being looked like. He said, sí, era un ser de luz como de 12 pies de alto, tenía brazos y la cabeza delgada y la luz era blanco. Wow, that's crazy. He said, that's fascinating, man. He said that the light being that he saw was like 12 feet tall. It had arms, a head, and it was a thin head, and it was a white light. That's amazing. How long was it there for? Did it disappear, Johnny? How did it leave? How did the experience end for you guys? Engaging the Phenomenon is here. If you guys are not subscribed to Engaging the Phenomenon's channel, make sure to check him out. He's a friend of the channel. He's an awesome guy. So Engaging the Phenomenon said, Mission Rama went to many sites for contact. Oh, that's interesting. Constellation Fleet said, I see the flash bulbs too. It's like they want to catch your attention. Well, yeah. See, that's what I was thinking too when I saw that. But of course, I wasn't going to start saying it was a UFO. You know, it was just something that I saw that was fascinating. But my story continues a little bit because some of you may have seen the videos on my channel where I experimented with the CE5 protocol, right? I don't, I guess you'd say I have no bias towards Stephen Greer. I think that if you're going to teach people to use their consciousness to contact whatever these beings are or whatever beings you can contact with your consciousness, shouldn't charge for that. So I sort of learned it on my own. I looked into what he does and tried to figure out how he does it, and then tried to apply that in one video. The first video, nothing happened. Second video, I'm alone in my house. People had told me after I made the first video that nothing happened because the way I was thinking, or, you know, I have to clear my mind and understand that they're not a threat or something like that, right? So that's what I did the second time around. I filmed that as well. And I sat in my house. I did the whole meditation thing. I'm not a meditator. I don't meditate often. I should probably, but I did the whole thing, and I decided, because I'm in the city, to go up on the roof of my house, right? The roof of the building that I was living in at the time. Take my camera, I go up there, and I'm looking up at the skies and the stars, and I'm thinking, wouldn't it be crazy if I see something? If you're there, you know, show me something. Again, same kind of thought I had the last time when we were in Cordoba. As I'm looking up at the sky, I'm noticing my camera, you know, it's not picking up the stars. I didn't have the right lens to shoot up at the stars. I wanted to get a shot of the stars and stuff. As I looked up there, it was super dark. And I looked down at my camera to check the settings or something. And as I look down, I can see straight ahead, you know, into the distance of the city. And I see again this blue flash, right? But this time it was kind of like a shooting star going up into the sky, if that makes sense. Because shooting stars, obviously, I've seen them in my life, and they kind of go across the sky, or, you know, they seem like they're going in a certain direction. This was going up into this, like it went up into the sky and just vanished. But the color was exactly the same color that I saw in Cordoba. And again, it was a light, right? So I'm not going to put all my chips in that corner. But I thought it was so strange and so eerie that happened while I was doing the CE5, you know, while I was experimenting with the CE5 protocol and meditation and consciousness and trying to see what happened. So yeah, that was another time that something strange happened. So let's check out the live chat again. Victor Bot said, I had a string of sightings in 2011 and a CE3 event in November of that year. Changed my life. What's a CE3 event? I thought it was CE5, Victor. Carl said, back in the 60s, my uncle saw a rectangular craft he described as large as an apartment building above him. He swore this till he died. Wow. You see? And like, think about how life-changing that is for somebody. They should not feel afraid to tell that story. We all need to hear those stories. The more we hear these stories, and the more experiencers and abductees can come out and feel comfortable telling these things to us, the more we're going to learn and the more we're going to grow. We may even get closer to figuring out our relationship with these beings, what's actually happening. You know, there may be an abductee out there that has the whole story, that knows everything that we want to know, you know. Victor Bot said, don't get too close. I agree. Like I said, after all the research I've done, I feel like you can't get too close. It's a gamble. Who knows what will happen, though? You know, I feel like lots of people expect, you know, lots of people expect that when you have a UFO close encounter or a close encounter with these beings, that you follow a certain protocol, right? That you pull out your camera, you start taking pictures because everyone wants to see footage. But I honestly know, as somebody that uses his camera all the time, that I don't even know if my camera will be able to pick up the picture. I don't even know if my camera will work during a close encounter, right? Because we know that electronics malfunction during close encounters. So how do we expect cameras to work during a close encounter? That's something I've often thought about. I even thought about making a whole video about that. So Grey Troll said, there are some pretty bad stories here in Brazil. People who got seriously sick after contact. There is no way they're all friendly. Logically, I'm saying, guys, logically, if we're going to accept the idea that we're being interacted with by more than one species or by a species, right? Each of those beings, who knows the different, factions or different groups that are interacting with us, what they really want. It would be illogical for us. It would be illogical for us to think that they all had the same end goal or the same view on our species. That's just not a smart way to think about anything. Constellation Fleet said, I have never witnessed a landing, but I often see over my property. That's interesting, man. That's another thing. Like, there seems to be people that are, I don't know, like beacons for close encounters. Like they see UFOs all the time, or they look up in the sky and they're there, right? I always wished that I had that ability, or that kind of, like, I could at least have that kind of experience, but so far I'm not sure, because remember too that the abduction phenomenon, one of the aspects is false memories. So I made a whole video talking about there may be a lot more people out there that have been abducted, that have had close encounters, that don't even remember their close encounter, right? Constellation Fleet says, they're mainly high up in the sky around the low cloud level. On a few occasions, they have come down quite low. That's amazing, man. That's awesome. Hey, Dave, how are you, man? Johnny Hernandez says, Cuando el ser se acercó, so he's finishing his story here. He's telling us a little more about his close encounter. He said, when the being got close to us, that's when the encounter ended. It turned back into a small little light and disappeared. Many days later, he had a dream where he was paralyzed, and he had he saw another one of these beings. That's interesting. Now, let me scroll up here in the chat. Now, Johnny, my dog is scratching herself over here. I'm going to help her out. Now, when the being got close to you, Johnny, did you see any sort of clothing, or was it just, you could make out the shape of the being and it was just light? That's interesting. Space Cow, what's up, man? I'm doing well. How are you? Glad to see you here. Paul, what's up? Thank you for being here, man. He says, Brandon Fugel put this info out on Twitter tonight. The evidence suggests that there are a diversity of origins, agendas, and types using advanced physics and technology. Is it multidimensional, extraterrestrial, or ultra-terrestrial? Yes. Are they all playing by the same similar rules or common rules of engagement? No. I mean, yeah. That's literally what I've been trying to say with all the videos I'm trying to make. That's why I understand when people believe that these beings are here to help us, because there may be a group of beings that are here to help us. But if you look at the evidence and you look at the cases and you just look at the phenomenon as a whole, you'll notice that, there's a yin and a yang aspect to this. There's a dark side and a positive side, like everything else in the universe, like everything else in reality, right? So thank you for sharing that, Paul. Well, that's literally what I've been trying to convey with my videos. So guys, keep sharing your stories with me. I want to hear more stories. I want to hear more about your experiences. Do you guys have any family members, any other family members, like that uncle that story about an uncle that saw a craft the size of an apartment building, I've had family members too tell me that they've seen craft. I had an aunt tell me that she saw a craft just sitting like on a street that in Los Angeles, like above a palm tree, that is literally a busy avenue, right? And I thought that was interesting because I was like, how did that not end up on the news? Or if you saw it, many other people saw it. That's something that I often tell experiencers and abductees when I talk to them, is that, where did this happen? What time did it happen? Maybe you weren't the only person that saw this. Let's find out. Let's look on the internet. Let's see if we can find news articles or anything that'll make you know that, what you saw, you really did see something. I feel like that's very important. Paul says, things are falling into place at last. I think that we are moving in the right direction, when looking at this phenomenon. Being, thinking outside of the box and not restricting ourselves to one viewpoint is super important, especially with a multifaceted phenomenon like this. Constellation Fleet, he says, I believe that there are much more abductions than recorded, as a lot of people either don't report their abductions or are unaware they even have been abducted. Yes. I made a whole video about that. And I agree 100%. My dog is asking me to get pet, so I'm trying to read the chat, pet her, and talk to you guys. We need an experiencer Discord channel where if you want to talk live, we can. Yeah, I agree. We should create things like that, more things like that. We need as many facets as we can make to help experiencers and abductees know that they're not alone and that they're super important to understanding, and understanding this phenomenon. I realized last time I was watching the live that I say a lot, so I'm going to try my best not to say that moving forward. Constellation Fleet said, people have suggested that I should get regressed or hypnosis, but it's very difficult to get anyone to take you seriously in the UK. I know. I feel like that's everywhere, so don't feel alone with that. I think you should try that. A lot of researchers have disregarded even regressions and hypnosis because they feel like it's not a valid way of figuring out, what's happening. So, come on. So, yeah, you should do that. Sorry. I got a needy pup over here. Dave Marley, he's in the UK. Hey, man. Hey, Dave. How are you? I'm loving this chat too, man. Thank you guys again for being here. I know maybe the time zones, it's a little complicated and stuff, but I'm super happy to be doing this. And I feel like I said in all the other videos, it's going to add a new dynamic to this channel. It's going to help us grow as a community. And we're going to be stronger. We're going to be a stronger community here that hopefully will trickle out into the rest of the UFO community. And we can change up the game a bit, do our best to work together and try to find the truth. So I'm thinking of any other stories or experiences that I had. But like I said, I've never seen a physical craft. I remember another time I was here in Buenos Aires too, and I met this tourist, this kid from the States, and somehow we started talking about UFOs. And the kid was, I think he was from like an Ivy League college or something, right? So he's like an intellectual kid. And we're talking about UFOs, and he's telling me, well, where's the proof? Where's the evidence? And that night, we had some drinks, and we were at this bar that had like an open roof, right? So you could see the stars, you could see the moon, and there was a full moon that night. As he's saying this, like, show me proof, I'm looking up at the sky again, because I do that often, and I see, the moon, and off of the moon, as he's saying that, I see this from here, right? It looks like a speck, or like a ball, a little rock or something, come off the moon and start floating across the sky. And could that have been a satellite? Yes, but again, I think the strange coincidences that happen is something crazy about reality, and I feel like more people need to be aware of those things, and that may be why other people have so many UFO encounters or see so many UFOs, because they're awake and aware of the reality around them. They're like touched, they're on a different level than some of us. So let's see the live chat. So how's the stream quality, guys? Does it look good? Sound good? Everything's still running smoothly? It looks like we still have an excellent connection. Dave says, I just finished my contact session. Had an amazing contact experience. Proof Craft Landing. David Marley, I think he has a YouTube channel. So he's asking you guys to check that out. Carl Anderson, great chat, by the way. Thank you, Carl. And obviously this chat wouldn't be as engaging if it weren't for you guys. So I'm going to read a message you actually sent before that I think I didn't read. The phenomenon seems to prefer to dwell in our peripheral reality, i.e., they want us to acknowledge them, but not wholly in our accepted reality. I think they're baiting us to expand our perception. Now, it's one of the. It's a good point, and that's something that people have talked about, and I think so. I think, like I said, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but there's probably positive aspects and negative aspects tied to this phenomenon. And if you are to consider the ancient astronaut hypothesis and that this phenomenon has been interacting with us since the beginning of time, right? I would say that it's actually helped us get to where we are today in a way. Because if you begin to look at history and religions as the phenomenon, you start to put the pieces of the puzzle together on a grander scale, you'll start to see that something has been, inspiring us and teaching us and guiding us through life, through existence. And is it the phenomenon? I'm not 100% sure, but I do think that that it's something we should think about. There may be beings that are trying to expand our perception and help us grow and reach a different level of understanding of reality. And there may be, beings that don't care enough to even waste their time on that. So yeah. Give me 1 second, guys. My dog is trying to get. My dog is running around. She's trying to get into the bedroom. So give me 1 second. I'm gonna let her in. I'll be right back. 1 second, guys. Don't leave. All right, we're back. Wow, there's such a big lag on what I'm seeing on my screen to what you guys are seeing. Like, I've already gotten up and came back, and when I'm looking at the live, it's like I just got up. So, sorry, guys. Let me check out the live chat again. So I'm glad it all looks good. Awesome. Johnny says contact will only happen when we're not a danger to them. So yeah, I agree. Contact will. Sorry, everybody's moving around in my house. So contact. I do. If you talk, depending on who you talk to, you'll get a different opinion on if they are a danger to, if we're actually a danger to them. I do think that we are a violent species, and we're very prone to violence and war. And I would be weary about making contact with us, even if you were intelligent and had weapons that could, wipe us out. I would be careful to not, I would try to warrant the way that I make contact, even with our species. Let me check out the live chat. Dave says it's cosmic consciousness. That's a whole nother conversation, the consciousness. We could talk for hours about consciousness and this phenomenon. Johnny Hernandez says maybe in 1,000 years. Engaging the phenomenon says synchronicities have some strange occurrences with contact. Yes, I agree. Synchronicities have some strange occurrences with contact, and there's really aspects of close encounters and the phenomenon itself that tie into the paranormal as a whole, which kind of puzzles me at times because, like some people smell sulfur when they see a craft, right? But if you look at cases of, I don't know, ghosts or people coming into contact with spirits or seeing, whatever you want to call them, entities, they smell the same thing, right? Also, this idea that at 3:00 in the morning, strange things happen, right? Like the witching hour. And a lot of cases that have to do with abduction, you see that same aspect. They're happening at 3:00 in the morning, which is very strange. Like I've tried to think about it and analyze it, but it just makes the rabbit hole so deep that I end up back to, I have to close the book and start again. Victor Bot said on YouTube, latency is pretty long. Yeah, I know. I don't know if it's my computer or what, but the lag is, at least as long as it's not lagging for you guys, I'm all good. I think it's fine. 3:33 a.m. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, Paul. One thing that I think too, that is strange, is that if you really try to think about this, right? You try to look at this strange aspect of 3:33 a.m. or the witching hour and this kind of stuff. But again, back to the ancient astronaut hypothesis. If these beings are what we portrayed as demons and angels and entities and these, strange beings that you see throughout legend and folklore around the world, then the ghouls and the monsters, right? The things that appear at 3:33 a.m. Is it just these entities or these beings, coming, showing themselves to us? And is it that we call them monsters and we have these names for these beings, but at the end of the day, it's all tied to the phenomenon? I don't know. It's something we could literally spend hours talking about, probably. Constellation Fleet said, perhaps humanity is just an experiment, therefore the reason why they have not made contact. Yes, definitely something I've thought about as well. If, again, we're keep going back to the ancient astronaut hypothesis, but if you look at it that way, then most likely we would be an experiment. If you look at religion and the way the text, the ancient texts talk about how we were created and how we became what we are, it seems like there was some kind of manipulation there, something that made us become what we are today. So maybe we are an experiment. I mean, a big aspect of the abduction phenomenon is this experiment aspect, right? Where people get abducted and they get tested. They get tests run on them for the hybrid program, which is something that people talk about a lot. So yeah, I agree. Victor Bot said, during a string of UFO sightings, we had increased poltergeist activity in our apartments. So that high strangeness definitely ties in. Whenever I talk about high strangeness, I think about John Keel and, the Mothman and all that kind of stuff. And one thing I was thinking in the past, I was looking at grimoires. Have you guys ever heard of what a grimoire is? Or do you guys know what a grimoire is? Like a magical book, right? For summoning entities. And the descriptions, the drawings in the grimoire, it was an old book, right? I don't remember the name of the grimoire now, but the drawings and the entities that were in this book, in this grimoire, made me think about the UFO phenomenon and the beings we come into contact with. Just like Aleister Crowley, when he did that, I think it was the Amalantra workings, and he tried to summon, open a portal with consciousness, basically, right, using magic. using the occult to bring this being into our reality. Lum, if you guys haven't heard of that, you should check it out. It's a really fascinating, interesting story. Some people actually tie it to the beginning of a UFO flap. But again, the occult and UFOs, that's also something we could spend hours talking about. But if we're going to believe, too, that consciousness, that we can use our consciousness to contact these beings, we have to think about what does that mean about how consciousness is applied in the occult, right? Does that make sense? If we have the power to contact beings from another reality or another, dimension or planet or whatever, how powerful is the human mind? And does that mean that the occult is also real, right? Like understanding how consciousness works kind of leads you down that path. So that's somewhere I've been. I've gone down this rabbit hole many times, and I have found myself just getting too deep and trying to find my way back and just look at try to not get strayed away from figuring out one part of this first. But I think there's a bunch of stuff we could talk about. Look, let me check out the live chat. Andres Yu, he says, "Hello, Gaucho. I'm new to this channel. Great content. Thank you, man. I wanted to ask you if you have checked out the Broadhaven landing. What do you think of it? Thanks." Now, the Broadhaven landing, I think Project Unity, if I'm not mistaken, just made a video about that. Let me know, guys, if you're not following Project Unity, make sure to follow him and check out his work. He's got a great YouTube channel. He does good research. Definitely somebody to subscribe to and to check out. So I'm trying to see, because I retweeted his last video, and I'm pretty sure it was on the Broadhaven case, if I'm not mistaken. But the Broadhaven case, if I'm not mistaken, guys, is the case where school children saw a craft land, correct? Correct me if I'm wrong. But in the last live that we did, I actually talked about... Oh. Yes. Okay, so that is the case. I was just making sure. In the last live, we talked about close encounters and school children, like the Ariel school case and the Westall case and the Broadhaven case. There's something about these beings coming into, showing themselves to school children in broad daylight, which I think is fascinating, right? It makes sense, in my opinion, it makes sense they would do this because I guess children are less threatening, and it'd be easier to tell a kid, like, you probably just imagined it, than it would be to tell a group of adults. So, Andres, thank you for being here and bringing that up, because that is an awesome case and more people need to know about it. But like I said, Project Unity, he's got a great channel and he just made a video about it. So go check that out. It's awesome. Paul Jones says, triple digit thingy, whole chapter in Robert Hastings' book. Victor Bott, you have it in one poltergeist type activity is to follow, like at Skinwalker Ranch. Well, Skinwalker Ranch is fascinating, something that I spent hours looking into, and kind of inspiration for my new video that I'm working on right now. But yeah, it's UFO hotspots, right? UFO hotspots. You don't only see UFOs at UFO hotspots. The paranormal and high strangeness runs rampant in those places. So that's something else we should be looking into and thinking why these locations have this kind of phenomenon happening in it. Constellation Fleet said, very easy to go down the rabbit hole, Gaucho. Yes, it is very easy to go down the rabbit hole, and I spend a lot of time there. Probably a little more than I should, but I think it's all part of the journey. And sometimes the rabbit hole can get dark and deep. You got to find your way back out. You got to try to, blow off the dust a little bit and get your feet back on the ground and figure out where you're going to head next, what you're going to look into next. Keep going down the path, Lowell. So Dave Marley said, children, I'm trying to figure out what he said there. Children have, I'm not sure what he said there. Sorry, Dave. Um, hey, I made it. I shared my story with you on Twitter regarding my grandfather. Oh, Brian. Let me see. Did you share it in a message? He probably shared it to me in a message. Let's check it out. I'm trying to find it, guys. I'm trying to find his message. I know you told me, yeah, Brian, actually, if this is the right person, because I think you're under, on Twitter, you're like UFO sightings are increasing. He said, I'd love more people to hear my story about my grandfather chasing two saucers over the site where the lunar lander was being built at that time in Northrop Grumman Air Force Base in the 60s as a police helicopter pilot in Long Island, Suffolk country. That's fascinating. That's an amazing story. So please share more of that story, Brian, if that's you and if that's what you're talking about. So I'm going to have a little more water. Give me a second, guys. So I'm all over the place tonight. My dog was in here. She was running through the whole house. I have a huge cable connecting my camera basically in the microphone here. If the dog knocks that over, bye-bye Canon camera. That would be bad. So I got to figure that out. Brian, oh, awesome. He's telling his story. 1 second, guys. Let me have some water. This time, I played it smart. Last time I was trying to get water. Now I have a big bottle of water. Just waiting here to hydrate myself. So Brian says, it was the 60s, and at Northrop Grumman Air Force Base, the lunar lander was being built. My grandpa was patrolling the South Shore and spotted two saucers above the Air Force Base and chased them. That's awesome. Your grandpa sounds like an awesome guy to think like, I mean, I guess I would do the same thing too. I would try to chase it. Not get too close like we were talking about earlier, but try to chase it for sure. He was chasing it and he had two fighters call him off. He then sat in a hover and watched them as they completely toyed with our fighters. Now, your grandfather chased them in a helicopter, right? Because that's, I think, what you said in the tweet. That's awesome, man. Is your grandfather still with us? You know, is he still here to tell this story? It's amazing. So many of these stories are so fascinating and so magical. I keep using this word tonight, magical. But the last live we did, I was talking about cinema and creating cinema that portrayed this phenomenon the way it should be portrayed. This story right here, Brian, that is something that should be in a movie. You know, that's ripped out of the pages of a comic book. And I say that so much, ripped out of the pages of a comic book, whenever I look into this phenomenon or the unexplained. There's so much stuff happening around us that makes you realize that reality is much more fascinating than we could ever believe. You know, the truth is much stranger than fiction. Yes, he's a helicopter pilot. So Brian's continuing the story for Suffolk police, and unfortunately he passed a few years later. I'm really sorry to hear that, Brian. He sounds like an awesome guy. He sounded like he was an awesome guy. Thank you for sharing that. Did he ever tell you what the craft looked like? You know, how close did he get? Did he ever point out any descriptions of the craft or anything like that? Thank you for sharing your story, Brian, and your grandfather's story. It's amazing, and it's definitely something that more people should know, because your grandfather sounded like an awesome guy, you know, like an awesome guy, and he had some guts to chase after two saucers. Okay, so I just asked you what the craft looked like, two saucers. He got real close. Wow. Did he so he said they were saucers, but did he give you any specific details of the saucers, right? Did they have like some people see that cartoony glass dome on the top or stuff like that. Did he see anything like that? Dave says we only see 1% of reality. You know, the more I create content about this and I look into this and I read about this, the more I think that is the truth. That we see very little. We don't see all the aspects of reality. We don't notice the things happening around us like we should be. He said seamless saucers, no windows, solid mold. That's awesome. And that's so many people have said that, Brian. So your grandfather was not alone in that sighting. So many people have said that it's just, you know, a solid mold, or it just looks like one giant piece, like one intricate piece. Constellation Fleet says, I find it interesting how abductees reports differ. Jack Valet mentions the trickster elements of the phenomenon in his books. Again, you know, it's very hard not to notice the trickster element, right? There's a lot of close encounters and abductions that happen where you notice this element come up, right? You see it happening. You hear the story. You see. One thing that I always laugh about is whenever you see a gray portrayed in the media, you know, a gray being, have you ever noticed that they're always like hiding behind something? They're always like peeking out from behind something. Even some videos that you find online that are like supposed real grays, they're always like hiding and like coming from around a corner or something. And I'm always like, if they can manipulate your emotions, right? Because that's something that abductees say happens, where like they first feel afraid, then they don't feel afraid anymore, and they can hear them talking to them in their head, right? So they're communicating with you telepathically. If they can do all that and walk through walls, I heard stories of them walking through walls. Why would they be peeking around corners, you know, or like just come into contact with us, make us forget you ever came into contact with us, manipulate our emotions, or walk through the wall, you know, disappear. I don't know. It's just parts of this stuff that sometimes don't sit with me very well, because I try to think, what are these beings really that intelligent, right? Because there's some aspects like the trickster aspect, and there's some aspects that you see in abduction cases where they seem kind of clunky or kind of slow or kind of weak, or the grays. I'm referring to the grays here, really. But yeah, so that's just another idea. Brian's continuing his story, which is great. Thank you, Brian. He says, no dome. And the following week, my father thinks he saw the same fly over our neighborhood, emitting a pink smoke. It was a mass sighting. All our neighborhood was interviewed by the Long Island Press. Brian, if you can find any snippets of that, any news about that, send it to me. You have my Twitter. Send it to me in a DM, or I'll try to find it. Brian says the 60s on Long Island seemed like a wild place. Lol. The 60s. Wow. You know, that's another thing too. Like visually, when you're telling me this story, I'm imagining the time period and the style of the clothes and the people that, you know, your family members witnessing this stuff. And it's inspiring. You know, it makes me think like, wow, that's crazy that this phenomenon has been interacting with us so long. And the craft, the description of the craft, this is something that so many people take for granted. But the description of the craft has changed. Like we've seen triangle-shaped craft, or, you know, the Tic Tac, but the saucers, like that description has been here this whole time, right? And you would think that if this was something confabulated or something created, the description would get distorted or manipulated throughout history, and we'd be looking at something completely different now. Gray Troll said, the gray peeking behind the wall. Stan Romanek. Oh man. The Stan Romanek had the gray peeking from the window. I mean, that's what I'm trying to say. I don't think they would ever be peeking. You know, they'd be like hiding and peeking from behind stuff. But Brian's still leaving some more comments here. Super awesome, man. Thank you. He says, so wild. I've only witnessed orbs personally. We saw 7 over our house on Christmas Eve 2015, and they did the wildest things. Orange lights. We all recorded them. Me and my dad, my brother, my mom. Then the videos were deleted. Oh, wow, that sucks, man. The videos got deleted. How did that happen? Ryan says, I'm going to try to find archived Long Island Press. Ain't around anymore. My dad is still around. I'm going to see if we can dig it up when he's back from his road trip. Okay, that sounds cool, Brian. That'd be awesome, man. So, how long's the stream been going now? About an hour? Guys, I'm going to keep pressing this and pushing this idea on the channel always, actually. I want all experiencers and all abductees to know that in this community here on my channel, you are free to share your story without being ridiculed, without being shunned, without being treated like, like you're making this up. We have to let experiencers and abductees tell their stories. They need to tell their stories. More people need to know these stories. So I promise to always, from here until they put me underground, to try to push that message out, because I think there's no way for us to truly know what's happening without analyzing these stories, analyzing these cases. Victor Bot, I'm reading a message he put up earlier. He says, the lenticular craft I got close to was the same. No seams, brushed, dark steel, no windows. Again, guys, you see, you start sharing stories and you guys notice that there's parts of your experience and other people's experiences that connect. That makes you understand that what you saw isn't that strange. Maybe you didn't, you saw what you saw and other people have seen the same thing. Constellation Fleet, thank you, man. Great channel, Gaucho. So, yeah, guys, I mean, honestly, I thank you guys all for being here always. This is so awesome. I really enjoy doing this. And we need to work together. I say this all the time. We need to work together in this community. There's too much division. There's too much hate. There's too much people. I understand that we've been tricked. We've dealt with charlatans in the past. But we need to keep our heads on straight, but also try to not hate. And that's the only way we're going to get to the bottom of this, or get at least closer to figuring out what's happening. So yeah, guys, remember, anytime you hear a story, if you know an experiencer or an abductee that wants to tell their story, they can always find me on Twitter, at the end of Gaucho. And I've had people reach out to me and just send me their story privately, and I haven't ever talked about it and I haven't shared it, because that's for them to share, right? I just want them to know that they're not alone and they can talk to me. So if you know anybody that wants to talk to somebody, you can shoot them in my direction. You guys are all awesome. I think I'm going to end this here. Oh, wait, there's new people coming in. Danny M. Hola, ¿cómo estás? Hey, man. How are you, Danny? Do you guys have any other topics you want to talk about tonight? I think we can give it a few more minutes, and then we should probably keep these like at an hour probably. But I'm having so much fun and I'm enjoying this that I forget the time. I don't even look at it. This is awesome, guys. Brian Smith is super bummed that Greer is charging for info while his whole platform has been about free energy for the planet. Guy's such a joke. Monetizing information should be criminal. Look, like I said, I have no bias when it comes to Greer. He's done a lot for the community. He's done work. He's put in the hours. But I agree with you. I said that way back in the day when, he was charging people to go on C5 retreats. I think that if you are in contact, because he's stated, correct me if I'm wrong, he stated that, he's had contact and he's been in contact with beings, right, from another reality or dimension or whatever. But I don't think they would want you to, like, if there was a way for us to contact these beings, like the C5, right? If there was a way to do this, I don't think they would want you to charge for that. Now, that was the first thing that kind of sat a little weird with me, right? Yeah, see, Dave said he learned for free, but the thing is, there's a lot of people that are paying to go on C5 retreats that cost a lot of money. I saw a whole article of somebody talking about one of those retreats that they had on a beach, that they traced like this plane that dropped flares, that actually what they were seeing wasn't, the orbs that people thought they were seeing. But I've met lots of people that have used C5, and they've had good experiences. I told you guys my experience earlier on this call, on this live, and but see, a lot of people are having this issue with Greer. Like even Johnny says, I don't believe in Greer. I don't think what he's doing is bad. I think that he's trying to make money from that aspect. Is probably not the best thing to do, seeing as if you want to take us to another level, you should be doing that for free. You should be teaching everyone for free, at least. There should be free C5 retreats, like free meetups where we all go. With Stephen Greer has free meetups, imagine, and everyone can just go and practice C5, and we can all learn together and teach it to our kids. And if it really works, it's super important to spread the message and let people know. Danny M says, has there ever been any negative C5 experiences? Now, one thing I've actually considered too in the past is exactly what Danny's saying. We know that there are negative close encounters. So is it possible to have a negative C5 experience? That was probably why I was a little weary the first time that I tried C5, was because I was thinking, how do I know what I'm contacting? How do I know my consciousness is contacting something friendly? How do I know? Because I've looked into the occult. I've looked into all these different things, and consciousness plays a big role in a lot of negative things too. You know what I mean? So I've had that same thought. I'm going to look into it a little more. I haven't heard any real negative stories, but I wonder if anyone's ever done C5, coming in contact with the craft and then got abducted and had a bad experience. I don't know. I've never heard that, but you never know. Brian Smith says, my experience brought me into this field, and I don't think C5 is real because I've done it. Whether coincidental or not, I was trying to initiate contact and saw orbs recently, 2 in a month, September and October. Oh, he says, I do think C5 is real. Sorry, Brian. I read that wrong. Well, that, like I said, guys, if you listen to the stories I told you earlier, a big part of me seeing the lights and stuff, the anomalous lights in the sky, was my consciousness. Every time that happened, I was thinking, show yourself to me, show me something, Carl Anderson says, Skinwalker Ranch, example of what you put in, you get back. Even demons are part of the bigger picture. Approach the phenomenon as the student, never the teacher, or you'll be schooled. Yeah, I agree, Carl. I'm not trying to, I'm always going to be that way, I'm never going to try to school the phenomenon. I feel like it's so powerful and so vast and so complex that you got to just realize that, you got to be careful. You got to look at it from every aspect and try to figure out what's going on. Brian Smith says, I'm going to try and survey this on Twitter if you all don't mind. That'd be great, Brian. You should do it for sure. So what do you guys think, the rest of you, about what's, the C5 and Greer trying to make money from that? I mean, I think that's the one thing, because before I was super into Greer's work. When that started happening, it was the first thing that kind of like, rubbed me a bit wrong. But yeah, I totally understand trying to make a living from looking into the phenomenon, right? Like you could write a book, you could make a film, you could, if I had the chance to do this full time, to have this channel full time, and to do this with you guys all the time, and to create content all the time, and to actually travel the world to different UFO hotspots and do research and film, create films in those locations, and just add value to the community with my content and what I do, I would love to do that. But I think that, there's nothing wrong with trying to make a living from something you love to do, or something that you do, right? But I think that if you're going to try to sell making contact, a way to make contact with extraterrestrials, I think that's a little too much, in my opinion, personal opinion. But like I said, no bias when it comes to Greer. Constellation Fleet said, if you're ever in the UK, I'll buy you a few beers. I will hold you to that, my friend. If I ever go to the UK, I would love to have a few beers with you. But like I was saying just now, guys, if I could ever do this full time, imagine if we could travel, right? Imagine if you could go to different UFO hotspots and just camp out. And I would love to go do that and take my camera and take you guys with me and show you guys everything, and maybe spend a week somewhere and check out towns and meet people and talk to people that have had experiences and stuff like that. So you never know. Maybe I will get to the UK one day, Constellation Fleet, and we can have a beer. Totally. Johnny Hernandez says, what do you think? He says, what do you think about us being a computer program created by them? So like the simulation theory. We've talked about reality being fascinating and reality being magical, and the simulation theory has been thrown out there, and some people are actually have a good, an interesting theory that ties into the UFO phenomenon and simulation and the simulation theory. Definitely something to look into. I have not spent enough time trying to break it down, but I do think that, you never know, guys. Anything is possible when it comes to this. Brian Smith is, he's talking about Greer again. He says he got Demi Lovato plugging all his apps, books, docs, tours, etc. And I don't think it's her fault, right? I don't think it's Demi Lovato's fault. Demi Lovato was just trying to make contact, and she probably saw Stephen Greer's films on Netflix, so she ended up, just like Tom DeLonge actually at one time worked with Greer, if I'm not mistaken, back in the past. Not anymore, but Danny M said, if we could pay the government to share information. If only we could pay the government to share information. Yeah. I agree. If only we could pay the government to share information. But if you think about where we are today as a society, right? It could be very possible that the government drops a bombshell, they start releasing information, and the public just doesn't still believe, they still don't believe it. The public doesn't believe a lot of things these days. A lot of things that are actually very real. You know what I mean? They start, it's like fake news, and this whole idea of media just being pushed out by anyone these days can really blind people from actually noticing the truth that's right in front of them. Brian Smith said, Puerto Rico locals had their coolest stories if I have ever heard about UFOs, etc. That's awesome, dude. See, that's what I mean. I need to do that more. I can't right now because of the pandemic, but in the future, that's where I hope to take this channel. So guys, I think my battery's actually going to die. So thank you guys for being here and talking to me tonight. This has been super awesome. Also, let you guys know, I created a Patreon. If you guys are interested in supporting me at all, just know that any of that, if you become a patron, any of that will go to just getting better equipment, having headsets and setting this up better, and just trying to make the community and the channel better and create better content. So if you guys just know, I will leave the link in the description of this when it gets re-uploaded, or you can check out my channel. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe, and you'll find a link to the Patreon there in the channel. But guys, thank you guys for being awesome. Have a great weekend, and I promise to make more content, and we'll talk very soon.